Rome. Scooters, traffic, tourists scrolling their phones. A perfectly ordinary modern city. But look just a little lower, and beneath the asphalt, an entirely different world begins. These cobblestones were walked by Roman legionaries 2,000 years before us. In this city, every single step means landing on someone else's history. Seven Hills, a bend in the Tiber River. Not the most obvious location for a city. No harbor, no trade route running through it. Rome got everything it ever had by taking it. In the 8th century BC, this was just one of dozens of Latin villages. Shepherds, goats, straw huts. Nothing here suggested it would one day be the capital of the known world. Legend says the city was founded by twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, sons of the god of war, raised by a she-wolf. Sounds like mythology, but archaeology confirms settlements on the Palatine Hill date to exactly that period. The 8th century BC, Rome's first teachers were the Etruscans, a sophisticated civilization to the north. They taught the Romans to build in stone. The great sewer they constructed in the 6th century BC still partially runs beneath the city today. Among all these competing Latin villages, Rome looked unremarkable at first. Just another settlement on just another hill. The neighbors weren't worried. They should have been. The tribal chiefs of the surrounding hills looked at Rome without much fear. A few centuries later, their descendants would speak only Latin and pay their taxes to Rome. The Tiber had the only convenient ford for hundreds of miles in either direction. Whoever controlled that crossing controlled trade between north and south. Rome controlled it. Rome began as a kingdom. 7 kings over 2.5 centuries. The last one turned out to be a tyrant, and in 509 BC, the Romans simply threw him out. Rome never tolerated a king again. Below the city, a drainage system had already been built with such engineering precision that neither barbarians nor time could destroy it. Part of that network is still functioning right now, as we speak, under modern Rome. Throwing out the king gave Rome the idea the entire Western world would later copy. Power must never belong to one person forever. From now on, 2 consuls, elected every year, each with the power to veto the other. No permanent ruler, ever. The Senate. This is where decisions were made that changed the world. Hundreds of aristocrats in white togas, a system of checks designed to prevent any single man from accumulating too much power. It worked, most of the time. The consul was the highest office in the Republic. 2 men, 1 year, each able to block the other. The American founding fathers read about this system and reproduced it almost exactly. 22 centuries later, war was the engine of Roman growth. First the Latin neighbors, then Etruria, then the entire Italian peninsula. Every victory brought new allies, new taxes, and new soldiers for the next war. The legion marches out. This is no longer a tribal militia. It's a professional war machine with standardized weapons, uniform tactics, and iron discipline. Look at the map. In 300 years of the Republic, a small city on 7 hills became the master of the entire Mediterranean. And this isn't even the empire yet. Gaius Julius Caesar. The man who understood, before anyone else, that the old republican system could no longer govern half the known world. He decided to fix that personally. The senators disagreed. 23 stab wounds on the Senate floor. At its peak, Rome held 1 million people. 1 million in a single city, with no elevators, no electricity, no running water in most homes. No other city on Earth would reach that number for nearly 1,800 years. London and Beijing got there only in the 19th century. How do you feed and water 1 million people? Aqueducts. 14 of them stretched toward Rome from the mountains, some for hundreds of kilometers. The water arriving in Rome was cleaner than what most European capitals had 1,000 years later. The public baths weren't just bathing facilities. They were clubs, meeting rooms, gyms, and social hubs all at once. Admission cost almost nothing, sometimes free. Government managing a city through comfort. The Colosseum. 80,000 spectators. 80 entrance arches so the crowd could fill and empty in minutes. The crowd logistics here are so sophisticated that modern stadium architects still study them. Gladiator fights? Brutal, yes, but also a government program. Free bread, free spectacles. While the masses were entertained in the arena, they weren't thinking about overthrowing anyone, a formula that has been rediscovered many times throughout history. The imperial box. One gesture of the emperor's hand decided life or death, not because the ruler was a sadist, because in that moment he was speaking to 80,000 people simultaneously, in a language every single one of them understood. Up to 200,000 Roman citizens received free grain every single day. The state was feeding a fifth of its own capital's population. In exchange, it asked only for loyalty. The Pantheon, built in 126 AD. An unreinforced concrete dome, and not a single crack to this day. The engineering was so advanced that humanity couldn't reliably reproduce it until the 20th century. Here is the map of the empire at its height, the 2nd century AD. From Scotland to Mesopotamia, from Morocco to Romania. Roughly 50 million people under one authority, all governed from one city. 410 AD. The Visigoths, under Alaric, breached the walls of Rome. The first time in 800 years an enemy had entered the city. The entire ancient world was in shock, as if the axis of the earth itself had shifted. 3 days of looting. Then the Visigoths left, as suddenly as they came. But something had broken permanently. Rome was no longer invincible. The empire would hold on for 60 more years. Then it collapsed. Here is the most staggering fact of this entire story. Within 2 centuries of the fall, Rome's population dropped from 1 million to roughly 20,000 people. The Forum, where the political life of half the world once played out, became a cow pasture. Locals called it simply the cow field. The aqueduct stopped working. Without aqueduct water, there is no sanitation, no agriculture around the city, no industry. Strip a city of its infrastructure, and it simply cannot sustain itself. A small medieval village, sheltering inside enormous ancient walls. People lived in the shadow of the Colosseum. They pulled marble slabs off the forums and crushed them for gravel. The great Rome had become a quarry for itself. But the city didn't die. It changed its profession. As emperors faded into history, the popes quietly stepped into their place. Power over souls turned out to be more durable than power over legions. The pope wore purple, the color of Roman emperors. He lived in a palace on a hill, like emperors. He received ambassadors from across Europe, like emperors. Rome was again the center of the world, just under a different banner, the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo spent 4 years lying on scaffolding, painting the ceiling. His eyesight deteriorated so badly that afterward he could only read by holding text directly above his face. That was the price of propaganda carved in beauty. Bernini's fountains, Baroque piazzas, grand boulevards. None of this was built for beauty alone. Rome was being redesigned as a stage set for the world's greatest theater. Every pilgrim who entered the city had to feel it. The representative of God lives here. St. Peter's Square. The colonnade wraps around it like 2 enormous arms in an embrace. That was Bernini's deliberate design. He said the square should receive Catholics to strengthen their faith, heretics to bring them back, and unbelievers to reveal the truth. Painters, sculptors, architects. Every great mind of the Renaissance passed through Rome at some point. The city became a magnet for talent once again. No longer military talent, creative talent. Every sculpture, every cathedral facade was a political statement in marble. The church spoke to people in the language of beauty, and that language worked far better than any edict or decree ever could. Modern Rome is a layer cake of a city. Slice open any old wall and you'll find a Roman temple foundation at the bottom, a medieval church built on top, a Renaissance facade added later. All of it functioning as one single building. Building a metro in Rome is its own special kind of suffering. Every time an excavator goes 3 meters down, workers hit something ancient. Construction stops. Archaeologists arrive. That's why Rome has only 3 metro lines, fewer than cities a third its size. Today, Rome receives 50 million tourists a year, more than the entire population of the empire at some points in its history. The Colosseum still draws massive crowds. They just charge admission now, and nobody gets killed. From any high point in Rome, you can see everything at once. The dome of the Pantheon next to a 1950s apartment block, a medieval tower behind a modern office. The city doesn't hide its past. The past just lives alongside the present. New York built itself once, and has been growing on that foundation ever since. Istanbul changed hands twice, but remained the same bridge between worlds. Rome is the only one of the 3 that truly disappeared, shrank to a village, and still came back. Twice the capital of the world. Maybe that's the real mark of a civilization, not that it never falls, but that after falling, it always finds a reason to rise again.